Now, Barry, I've seen a lot of interviews with you. You're at Awakening Expo here in Manchester with us. And I have to be honest to say, I never really actually get the chance to ask the questions myself. You know, work colleague, we travel around the world, we've been involved Project Door, all of the sorts of things. Lots of people following that material. But you know what? Here's a killer questions. Straight to the point, buddy. There's a lot of talk nowadays. Friend or foe, we've got a friend or foe panel coming up shortly. Yep. Big debate. Lots of people making connections now. Actually, a lot of people have come tonight and said, and it's quite surprising, we start to see the tides turn a little bit. People are asking questions. Should we really accept this phenomenon for what it is? What do you think?
Absolutely not. And from my perspective, I think we need to challenge it. We shouldn't accept it on face value. And the problem is that modern mainstream media is giving us this particular feed that's coming out, which is something which we already know over the past 40 years. But 40 years ago, we were called conspiracy theorists. But now mainstream media seems to select this and tell us this is what's really happening. Well, you're telling me nothing that we don't already know. But the problem is that these entities and beings that are coming through are being unchallenged. And this is where we need to be. We need to understand, we need to set the line in the sand. We need to say, I'm holding you here until you prove yourself. Before we start making contact, before we start getting into anything, any negotiation or any communication, you've got to fit some criteria. And at the minute, I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing us accepting this completely.
Yes.
And that is a problem.
It is. How do we get to that point now? There's the question. How did you derive to that point? Because what's happened, what evidence, what things have you discovered to lead you to where you are now?
Good science starts with observation. And that observation can take years, and that's exactly where I've come from.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm coming with this, with the years of experience, looking at the field, watching it, studying it, listening to it. And from that point, then I'm able to see, okay, this is the line that I'm drawing in the sand. You have to step up to the line for me to trust you.
Yeah, and of course you're about 30 years, sorry, I'm not trying to give anything away here, but 30 years plus into this subject now, and some.
You're making me feel old.
But you know what, it really is, because knowledge is wisdom and it's required for this subject. But you know what, you've got a lot of different various subjects here being talked about at Awakening and the 4BK TV World Tour event as well. And I'm listening to people talk about the paranormal. I've heard about cryptids, sightings. I've heard about UFOs, all sorts of things. There are commonalities between them. And do you see the same commonalities, which we have to question,
Absolutely, and Project Doorways was a perfect example of how we displayed this fine thread that weaved through all the fringe research fields to see that we're looking at similar connections right across the broad spectrum of phenomena. And really what it seemed to be suggesting is that we're not looking at something that's coming from different places. We're looking at something that's actually coming from the same source.
Now that's really interesting because there's a lot of people have made suggestions that we're dealing with something more terrestrial in origin. And now I thought to myself, well, hang on, where did all the extraterrestrial stuff just disappear to?
The evidence that I'm looking at would suggest that this stuff has been here long before we were.
Really? Just how long do you think that goes back?
Millions of years.
Really? So we might be the new kids on the block.
We are definitely the new kids on the block. 200,000 years ago, suddenly we appeared on the scene. And we're not really finding anything. I think the range is between 300,000, 200,000 years ago. We appeared on the scene. And it seems that we just suddenly seem to explode onto this arena of other species that we were sharing the planet with. And no doubt what we tend to see in history as this plays out, we don't tend to look well on the small person. And let's face it, the ones that were here before were smaller.
Absolutely, very true. So it's very hard about working out what people are actually experiencing then. But they are slowly putting the dots together. And of course, that's what Last Journey is about. And the research done around the world is about. It's trying to figure out what is really interacting with humankind. So do you think there's a ruse to keep your eyes on the sky, to think it's Star Trek style, that they're coming from all these different planets?
I think there are two different things going on here. We're definitely at a fork in the road because we have the man-made manipulation, the BS that's coming out in the mainstream media is portraying one thing when I'm looking at the original phenomena, which takes me on a different fork on that route. And there are two distinct camps. But, needless to say, we should definitely be very concerned about accepting the right hand far and seeing what's coming through there. If we identify the man-made stuff, we're okay. We get that. There are black budget projects and everything else that has to, that's the nature of the business that the world economy works on.
Yeah.
That's okay. We see that. But this other stuff has always been there and has always kept itself hidden somewhat in the back doors of our development.
Well, of course, there's still people out there that really may have not made that connection, like many others have, but some of them probably haven't, and still going out and facing this phenomena dead on, throwing themselves at it in some cases. What word of warnings can we give them?
We need to get back at ourselves, understand who we are as a species. We need to understand our own biology, the triggers from our own biology that signal the nature of the phenomena that we're interacting with. If we fail to recognize those signals, we will fail in our abilities to try and understand the phenomena.
So it lies sort of in heart, not the mind, and you don't let your mind kind of run away with itself? No.
This is something the key factors that you're looking for are going to be physical responses within your bodily system. And that bodily system can be interfered with. After 20 seconds, I call it the 20-second rule. After it passes 20 seconds, we can stop listening to those signals from our gift of discernment, this psychic center that we have. And this, in part, is something which is being utilized by the phenomena, because if it goes past the 20 seconds, then there are alterations within our brain patterns, and we start moving into cycles where we can get false memory implanted. We can get so much problems developing there because we failed to listen to the signals that our body was giving us within the first 20 seconds.
Interesting, very interesting. So, do you think the hierarchy, they know all this? Do you think they've made that connection already? And it's just a general populace that haven't really kind of...
There are certain areas within our society, certain pay grades, let's call them.
Yes.
Within our society that have been utilizing, and the higher pay grades have definitely been utilizing a connection to this other phenomena. And we know that. The paper trail is there. With the communications that high business and especially the industrial complex has definitely been utilizing to try and make contacts to better the different systems that they're using, and also ruling as in us, the human species. There are things coming down the line which is not from our leaders but from this other aspect, which we really need to consider.
So, Awakening 2023 for BKTV World Tour, 2.5 days of craziness. What do you think so far? How have you enjoyed the event?
I've absolutely loved it, and I've met some wonderful people here. And even the speakers, they have been absolutely brilliant.
And have you seen a change? People coming to you?
Yes, I've seen a distinct change. In fact, people are coming to me. I'm in the middle of writing a book with yourself, and I'm finding people are already spotting what I have been writing about. And I'm saying, how does this even happen? I'm stuck out in the field, I'm doing this, I'm watching and I'm recording everything, and yet I've got people coming to the table completely out of the blue and mention the very same thing that brilliant. I'm writing about.
You know what, it's just like the work's paying off then.
Yes.
Absolutely. So how do people get hold of you? Find out more about you, your books and things?
People can contact me through my Facebook account, and that is going to be the easiest way to reach me, or you can try and reach me on my Twitter as well.
Right, and do you have books on your website and things like that?
Yes, charmstealer.com. There's a series of books there, and the last publication was The Deceptions of Gods and Men, which looks at the heavy line of deception that comes from beyond the void and how we need to prepare ourselves for that.
Very good. I've heard a lot about this book. It's selling very, very well. It's very interesting, and it's something different. There's nothing out there to really challenge it, to be honest.
Again, this is a book that's based on observation.
Yeah.
And I think it's very, very important that we share this information. And the next book that we're working on, Staring into Darkness, follows on from The Deceptions of Gods and Men. So I think it's really going to make a great compendium.
Brilliant. Well, thanks very much for Barry for joining us here at Awakening Expo, and we look forward to seeing you more.